Hopefully the microphone works. Okay, so just mentioned that the policy is I'll drop your 2 lowest homework assignments of the semester, but you can only turn in late work if you have a university excused absence. And if you don't, I would be grateful if you don't email me asking for an exception. It either has to be university excused absence or just use one of your 2 freebies if you miss an assignment. The academic integrity expectations are here on the page 3, and I list some acceptable behaviors and unacceptable behaviors. The long and short of that is that when you submit things in this class, whether it's homework or exams, I expect it to be a reflection of your work. So you shouldn't group work homework assignments. You can talk about concepts with other students, but you shouldn't all sit around the table solving it at the same time, because the problem with that approach is whoever just kind of is naturally quickest will do all of the mental work, and other people just kind of mimic and follow in their footsteps and never actually go through the strengthening and learning process to the extent that they need to be ready for the exams. So read over the specifics of the academic integrity policy, and just know that incoming homework assignments will be screened for inappropriate collaboration, meaning copying or accessing unauthorized resources online. And if you submit a homework assignment where you've copied from another student or an online reference, then the penalty for that is more severe than a 0 on the assignment. So you'll actually get negative points on the assignment if you cheat on it. As far as attendance goes, if you are late, you get half credit for attending the class meeting if you arrive within the first 25 minutes of class. And then the attendance penalties are on the table on page 4, just showing that you can have 2 unexcused absences and it'll have no effect on your final grade. But then after that, every successive absence will reduce your final grade by 1%. And then if you get 13 unexcused absences, which is a lot, then you automatically fail the course. So any questions so far on the course policies? Okay. So the learning outcomes describe what we're going to try and learn and accomplish this semester. And there's a column that explains how each one of those outcomes will be practiced, how each one of the outcomes will be assessed. So if you're interested to kind of look into the future, I invite you to look over the learning outcomes table. And then there's a full list of policies that apply for all academic courses on page 5. And so sometimes before you graduate from Marshall, you maybe should look at all these policies that kind of govern your behavior as a student. Now the last thing I want to point out is this table on the back side of the handout. And this is maybe the most important piece of paper of the whole semester, because it's a timeline of what we'll do in every class. It shows the topic of every lecture. It shows all the holidays when the class will be canceled. It shows a couple of days during the semester where instead of meeting in person, I'll have a lecture video posted for you online. Specifically next week, the lecture video will be posted online. And then it also shows the assignment due dates. So on this handout slide, you can see, for example, homework 1 is due on Monday, August 28th. But also if you look at the table, you'll notice in the far right column it says homework 1, and that's on Monday the 28th. So you can see through the whole semester when every assignment is going to be due, including the class project. So this is a really important table. It's also posted on Blackboard. If you ever happen to lose this handout, the syllabus and the schedule are posted on Blackboard. And we already know the date of our final exam. That'll be the second to the last exam slot on Friday, the 8th of December. So, any questions on the schedule? All right, well, if something comes up later, just let me know. You know, this can definitely be an interactive class, although a big group naturally makes people feel a little bit reluctant to participate. One of the good things about this class is I have a lot of hands-on in-class exercises that kind of like break that participation barrier down, and we'll do the first of those today. So let's talk about the goods and services that you're going to use today. And sometimes if you watch the news, you'll hear the phrase consumer. They talk about people as consumers. That's kind of weird if you think about, like, to me that sounds like parasite, you know, like the consumers in the American economy, but that's not what they mean. They're just talking about people's use of goods and services. So for example, when you woke up this morning, maybe you used toothpaste and you consumed fresh water when you took a shower. Maybe you consumed gasoline as you drove to campus. So those are the goods that you use. Maybe you'll go to lunch later. Services are things that are non-tangible but are requiring a work from somebody else. And so, for example, you're consuming a service right now by being in this classroom. You know, I'm teaching you, that's a service that you're getting. Maybe another service could be riding on an airplane, going from place to place. So when you use those goods and services, there has to be some way for you to compensate the people who have provided them to you. So how do you pay for goods and services? You may use paper cash, a credit card, checks. Those are some pretty standard means of payment. Sometimes you can program your watch or your phone. It's usually just linked to a credit card. But over the years, throughout time, the way that we pay for goods and services have changed. In really long ago times, people would use like shells or beads or physical objects that they found for payment. This is a sand dollar, a special kind of shell that they used in some island economies as payment. Of course, everybody would love to have a gold brick, a kilogram of gold. That would be just wonderful to have a kilogram of gold. And here's a whole bunch of them. There's paper cash, which used to be linked to a certain equivalent amount of gold, but now is just more of an abstract or what's called a fiat currency. Here's the Bitcoin representation, although it's always such a misnomer when people show like a physical Bitcoin, because of course it's not an actual coin. It's just a private encryption key that shows you have a certain amount of credit, and you sign a statement saying that you transfer some of that credit to someone else. And so you would actually make a payment maybe with a wallet. You use the QR code to get the address. So these are all different ways of making payments. And we think that we know a lot about money, but it gets complicated really quickly. I mean, you can use money your whole life and not really understand some of the most important fundamental concepts of the economy. So you may be wondering why, as a computer science student or an engineer, would you need to take an economics class? And it's because a lot of the projects that we do consume money to be created. They produce money for the people who generate the project and own them. But then, more importantly, a lot of the projects that are built and operated extend over a really long time frame. And one of the most difficult things that we do is accounting for how money changes over time. So we're going to be talking all about money in this class and decision making. So money is a medium of exchange. A medium of exchange meaning that, for example, when you consume gasoline, you don't have to pay in the exact thing that you produce. Like, what if I had to find gasoline and the only people who would give it to me is people who would accept my teaching as payment? Like, none of you have an oil well, I don't think, or like an oil refinery. None of you could pay me in gasoline. So it'd be really hard if we were in a barter economy for me to get all the things that I need with the limited number of things that I'm able to produce. And so medium of exchange means that there's this intermediate abstract thing called money, and you give your money to the university, and the university gives it to me, and then I can buy all of the things that I need with that abstract money, whether it's firewood, whether it's gasoline, whether it's toothpaste, all the things that we consume, money sits in the middle as the medium of exchange. Money acts as a store of value because you may want to receive goods and services at a different time than you're producing. So you're producing something through your life. And if you think about what happens when you get older, it's more difficult to produce. And so retired people, for example, are going to be consuming firewood because they need to keep warm during the wintertime. They're going to be consuming food. They're going to be consuming Netflix, cell phone services. All of those things that they want to consume when they're older and don't necessarily want to work, they could have worked when they were younger, store up the value of that work, and then spend it later. So money is a means of time shifting, where you can produce and consume at different times rather than you get paid at the end of every day and you use all that money and then you have nothing going into the next day. That makes life more difficult if you can't store value. Money is also a unit of accounting because it's a useful way to keep track of how different organizations are performing, how productive people are. So you can know if a university, if things are going wrong at a university. Anybody hear about Alderson Broaddus University? So that's a university here in West Virginia that unfortunately over the summer they closed their doors. They ran out of money, and so by tracking the finances of the organization, the number of dollars they had in their account or the amount of debt rather than the number of dollars would just be a way of keeping track of the performance of an organization. So money is useful as a unit of accounting, and money is also good for communicating. Like here in the United States, there's no central government that's forcing you to do a certain thing for your career. There isn't like a sorting hat that's telling you you're going to be a civil engineer, you're going to be a garbage collector, you're going to be working for the water company. It doesn't work like that. We all just make our own decisions, but the salary that you earn is one important indicator maybe of what you should do. Or for an individual company, the money that they can make by selling products is a good piece of information on which products they should produce. The things that are most profitable, that's the market communicating to them what more is needed of. And does anybody remember last year at this time that eggs were really expensive? I mean, it was like $3 a dozen for the generic grocery store brand kind, not like the nice organic ones. Like the cheapest eggs you could get, maybe $3 a dozen. So now it's gone down a lot. It's down to like I think $1.20 because those high prices were communicating to farmers, produce more eggs. And, you know, like there didn't need to be a national fireside chat where the president told farmers to grow eggs. There didn't need to be a law from Congress. The only thing that there needed to be was high prices, profits to be made, and so that money communicated what people should do. And I've experienced that in my own life. 2 years ago, I was doing a trail race up in the mountains of France, and there was a death on the course, unfortunately, and we got stuck at the top of a mountain because they were doing like emergency rescue of the guy who had died, and we had to just stop on this mountaintop for 6 hours, and people were putting their emergency blankets on, trying to keep warm. Everybody was out of food, everybody was out of water. I was really thirsty. We had to hike back the opposite direction, back to a French town called Bourg-Saint-Maurice. And luckily, on the way to Bourg-Saint-Maurice is a little castle where somebody knew there's a lot of runners passing through here this weekend. I'm going to set up a little tent and sell Coke for €5. €5 a can. That's a lot. That's like $5.50 for a can of Coke. I was so happy to pay $5.50 for a can of Coke when I finally got back to this castle. The person knew that they could make profit. I was happy to pay it because the money and the profits available had communicated where the need would be. Like if they were there the week afterwards, they wouldn't have sold any. If they were down in Bourg-Saint-Maurice, they wouldn't have been able to get $5 a can for the Coke. They were in the right place at the right time because the profits they could earn had communicated need. So money is very interesting as a tool. Some of the things that we think of as the characteristics of money is that it has to be durable. Now, by the way, every different kind of money or thing that we use as money is good in some characteristics and bad in others. So, for example, a coin is durable. It lasts pretty long. It can change hands hundreds of times without wearing out. But a dollar bill is a little bit less durable. And you know, some banknotes are less durable than others. I visited India a few years ago, and the currency there doesn't have the same like cotton content, I don't think, as US dollars. And so all the money was really worn out. So certain things are durable, others aren't durable. So think about Bitcoin. It doesn't wear out because it doesn't actually have a physical characteristic to it. So certain types of money will be durable versus non-durable. Some things are portable. So people need to be able to take the money with them, so sand dollars. How convenient would it be to lug a basket of sand dollars grocery shopping? It would be not very portable, whereas if your credit card is linked on your cell phone, it's very portable. You can take it anywhere you want. Or Bitcoin, if you know a seed phrase for your Bitcoin wallet, then you can just take that in your mind wherever you go. Divisibility. So think about those gold bricks. 1 kilogram of gold would be hard to pay for a cup of coffee. Because 1 kilogram of gold, that's like around 20 ounces, that's like 35 ounces, so it's like $35,000. I suppose you could shave off with like a little razor blade some flakes off of the gold brick, but it wouldn't be easily divided into useful, smaller denominations. And so coins and bills are relatively easily divisible once you get the standardization down. Uniformity means that a dollar bill, my dollar bill has to be as good as your dollar bill. Like there can't be like some that are favored versus discriminated against. And some people have said in the case of Bitcoin that not all Bitcoin can be uniform if it's been proven that certain Bitcoin quantities have been stolen and then are considered like trafficked or associated with crime. Whereas cash, once it's changed hands, you don't know what its history is, and so that makes it easier for it to be uniform if you don't necessarily know the history of the bill. It wouldn't be very convenient, or I don't know, it wouldn't be very useful as a currency if there was an unlimited supply of it, because if there's no scarcity, then if you could just shovel dirt and pay for things with dirt, then everybody would have so much money that would outweigh the number of goods that are available. So that's why money has to be available in limited quantities, is because the things that you use money for are available in limited quantities. And then acceptability is kind of related to uniformity. It's just that everyone has to be able to exchange the money for goods and services. And so I think that U.S. money has to be, like by federal law, accepted by businesses for transactions. People can't necessarily refuse payment. And so those are the characteristics of money. Now, by the way, I see people taking notes. That's a good habit. For those of you who are hoping to earn an A this semester, taking notes will help you with that this semester. The lecture notes are also posted on Blackboard for today's lecture. So if you are one of those people that likes to maybe write on an iPad and have the PDF in the background, I've just posted those lecture notes on Blackboard a few minutes ago. So you can get them there. So this semester we're going to be talking about decision making as it relates to money. So analyses like, should we do one thing or should we do another thing in order to maximize our profits? Or what kind of a choice should we make if we want to maximize the benefits to society? There's a lot of different analytical methods that you'll learn to make choices. So this course is about that, and a big part of it is comparing alternatives, because whether it's a computer server or a piece of construction equipment or machines in a factory, there's always going to be different alternatives of things that you can buy to accomplish a task. Or there may be different providers of a service that your organization is going to consume. And so when you have options, it can be confusing to know which option you should select. For example, should you get a small steamroller or a large steamroller? Taking into account that the large one will cover a wider path, so presumably, you wouldn't have to go back and forth quite so many times to smooth out this single lane road. And presumably this big one goes faster, but it also costs more. And who knows which of the two is more durable. So we're going to look at all the different things that go into trying to analyze which piece of equipment should be selected versus another. And especially the tricky thing, as I mentioned earlier, is when there's different time frames. When one piece of equipment lasts for 10 years, for example, and another lasts for 15, then it can be very difficult to compare alternatives if we don't have the right tools available. And that time value of money is the notion that what's better? Just as a hypothetical setup. Is it better to take $8,000 now, or is it better to take $4,500 in year 3 and then $4,500 in year 4? So 4,500 times 2 is 9,000, right? So without knowing any better, you'd say, well, it's better to take $9,000 than it is to take $8,000. But you'll also notice that it's mentioning there's an interest rate that applies. So if you could invest the $8,000 and you're earning 8.5% on it each year that it's invested, it might be better to take the lump sum payment at time 0 rather than future payments, even if the total number of dollars of the future payments is higher. So the time value of money helps you to understand which payment systems are more advantageous to you. And also, it helps you to predict things like how maybe the cost of materials will increase over time. There's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years about inflation. And who knows what inflation is? Who can just offer a guess of the definition of an inflation?
Depreciation of value.
The depreciation of value. I think that's part of it. I wouldn't say that's wrong.
Decrease in scarcity of resources.
Decrease in scarcity of resources. Okay. Yeah.
It could be the decrease in the value of money.
Decrease in the value of money. I think that one maybe is my favorite one so far. Anybody else want to take one more stab at? Yeah.
It's adding what he said. It's the decrease in value of money, but the amount of goods is still left the same.
Okay. There may even be more goods, but it's just that the number of goods increased at a rate that's less than the money supply. So inflation is when things cost more in the future. So for example, people have been complaining that car prices went up a lot. People have been complaining, I complained earlier about the egg prices, right? Inflation is just that prices are increasing, and there are a lot of reasons why that happens, but one of them is because the money supply is increased. And if there's more money in the future, but the number of goods available has increased at a lesser rate, then the value of the money is going to be decreasing. So the time value of money is all centered on this idea that money in the future is less valuable than money now. So why is future money less valuable? It's because in the future there are going to be more dollars. So if you have $10 now, you could buy a certain amount of stuff. But next year, you'd be able to buy less things with that $10 because there's just more money out in the economy. And that greater amount of money is chasing either the same amount of things or more things, but the amount of things increased slower than the amount of money. So we'll talk all about how money in the future is less valuable than money now. There's also the aspect of it's just more fun to spend money today than it is in the future. Like deferred satisfaction. The idea that if you have to delay your purchase, then you want to be compensated for that delay. So this all ties into the idea of interest, which we're going to be talking about today. Now, since future money is less valuable, when you make a loan to somebody, then people will want a premium for that loan. For the privilege of borrowing my money, I would want you to pay back more in the future. There's also the risk that you may not pay me back, and I'm going to want to be compensated for that. So interest is a physical manifestation of the time value of money. So because things are costing more in the future, if I make a loan, then I want to have more money back so I can buy things in the future and not lose purchasing power. Like if I loaned you $10 and you just pay me back the same $10 in the future, then I've lost purchasing power. But if you pay me back $11 and now the goods are only $10.50, then my purchasing power is increased. So interest, you can think of it as a fee that you'd pay to borrow money. It's compensation for delay, compensation because the future value money that you're paying back a loan with isn't as valuable as the money that you originally borrowed. It's compensation for the risk of default. So interest is simply the difference between the original principal that you give somebody, the beginning amount in a loan and the end amount in the loan. So interest is how much you owe at the end of a time period minus the principal. So the difference between the two, like if I loan you money for a year and you pay me back $11, but I only originally paid you $10, like for the loan, then the interest amount would be the $1. And we could express that as a rate by dividing the interest amount by the principal. And so interest rate is, as a percentage, an annual percentage, you'd have the interest accrued per time unit, so how many dollars per year of interest accrued divided by the principal amount. So we're going to do some calculations today, just to play around with the idea of interest and interest rate. I've got this in-class exercise, and I'm going to distribute this. I'd be glad if you work on this with the people you're sitting next to. You know, just kind of check your answers with them. Like this in-class exercise is meant to be collaborative. And it's also something you can take with you, and I think it's going to pave the way for the homework. So I'm kind of like seeding some concepts and equations and ideas that should make the homework assignment a little bit easier. Let me bring it up on the screen so that you can take a look. I may not have put the exact number of papers at each row, so check with the row behind you to see if they've got extras. Let me pull it up, and then I'll also help to even out these. Okay, so 3 problems here. Remember, it's totally fine to talk amongst yourselves. I don't mind if it gets really noisy in here. In fact, noise is the sound of learning when it comes to these in-class exercises, so go for it. All right, let's take a look at the solution. I know you may not have finished the 3rd problem, but I still want to give you kind of a little bit of an overview in any case. So the first one's relatively straightforward, right? If you borrow $20,000 and it charges 5% annual interest, then that means that the interest that you're going to have to pay, the interest component is $1,000, so that's 5% of $20,000. And then be careful because it says what is the total amount that you have to pay. So the total amount that you have to repay is the interest and the principal. So $21,000. So $20,000 is the principal amount, $1,000 is the interest amount. So we're just understanding the different component pieces of that repayment at the end. When you give them $21,000, like that specific amount is including the original principal that you borrowed and the interest payment, which is accounting for the risk of non-payment, it's accounting for the time value of money, the risk of inflation, and so on. So $21,000. Any questions about the first problem? Okay, the second one. What rate of return will you earn if you invest $200,000 in a company, and after 1 year they pay you back $212,000? So the principal, the original amount is $200,000. The interest is $12,000 after 1 year. So remember that percent, the rate of return and the percent, it takes a time component into effect. So we want to know per period how much is the interest amount. So it's $12,000 per year. So the rate of return is that you're getting every year $12,000 on an original amount of $200,000, and that's 6% per year. All right, so I don't want to show you the solution to the third one yet, but I gave you a hint here that you can either do the currency exchange first or the interest calculation part of it first. either order, and you'll get the same answer in the end. This ISK is Icelandic krona, and AED is United Arab Emirates dirham. So the exchange rate is every United Arab Emirates dirham is worth 35.25 Icelandic krona. So we know today how much money is in Peter's account, and we want to know a year ago what was the value of the account in dirhams if it has earned 3% interest. So what we're assuming is that the now amount includes the principal and the interest. So we want to find out a year ago what was just the principal that was there.
As a general convention for this class, do you want us to round to the nearest cent or keep all decimal places?
That's a good question. So about rounding things off, right? It's going to depend on what you're using to get your answer. So if you're using a formula where you can calculate the interest rate exactly, then to the nearest penny or to the nearest 100th of an Icelandic krona. I don't remember if they call those pennies or not, but there are going to be times when you'll use like what's called a factor table, and it'll only have like 4 or 5 digits of precision on that, and then you'll round up your answer based on the factor that you use. So we'll talk about that, but the short answer is it varies. For this one, take it to the nearest penny. All right, so I'm going to pause again, give you just a few more minutes to finish up problem 3. Okay, here's the answer to number 3. So I did it in the order of first the currency exchange and then the interest rate calculations. So the converting the Icelandic krona to dirhams means that today there's 1563 and 79 fils, as they're called over there, not cents. And so that's the amount today, and if I want to know the initial amount, which I'm calling X, then the amount today includes the principal and the interest. So 1.03 takes into account 1 is the principal, 0.03 is the interest. So I'm saying today is the principal and interest, and so I want to calculate 1.03 times that. Are you here for engineering economy?
Is this room 106?
This is room 106, yeah. Engineering economy is here until 12:50.
Oh, I apologize.
That's right. So we find the amount in dirhams today, and then we convert it. So we convert it from krona to dirhams, and then calculate the original principal amount that was there. So a year ago it was 1518.24. So did anybody else get that same value? Good. About half the people. The other half that didn't get it, hopefully now you understand. So homework 1 is posted online now, and if you want to get an early start, let me show you this equation. Present amount plus I to the n. All right, I'm going to tell you all about this equation in a future class, but if you are just an early bird and you can't resist and you want to jump on that homework assignment now, the future amount, meaning how many dollars in the future, if you're doing compound interest, 1 plus I to the n multiplied by the future, by the present amount will tell you the future amount. So that's a sneak preview. We still have 2 minutes. So it looked like the app worked okay. There were a couple of people who have created an account and it didn't record the attendance. So Austin, Eric, Zabala, John Huey, Connor Mason Sawyers, Richard, David Smith. So if I said your name just now, you recorded in the system, but it didn't get your attendance. So don't worry about that. Like, I'm just going to mark everybody here for today, but let's try it again on Wednesday, and hopefully we get this attendance thing to work all right. So that's it for today. Just if if you'll allow me to, one last time, we still have a minute. The to-do list for you is get the textbook, take a look at the homework assignment, read over the syllabus, let me know if you have any questions. And homework 1 includes kind of like a personal getting to know you type question. So, you know, if nothing else, you can get started on that part of it today. All right, I'll see you on Wednesday. Thank you.
I'm looking.